So the president claimed back in April that he didn't know about the $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about the sexual encounter she says she had with the president. Then citizen Trump, husband Trump, father of a newborn Trump. The president, of course, did know about the payment. He's on record discussing it with Michael Cohen. And according to evidence presented by Cohen today, the president wrote a check reimbursing him for the hush money after he took office.
And I'm giving the committee today a copy of the $130,000 wire transfer from me to Ms. Clifford's attorney during the closing days of the presidential campaign that was demanded by Ms. Clifford to maintain her silence about her affair with Mr. Trump. And this is Exhibit 4 to my testimony. Mr. Trump directed me to use my own personal funds from a home equity line of credit to avoid any money being traced back to him that could negatively impact his campaign. I am providing a copy of a $35,000 check that President Trump personally signed from his personal bank account on August 1st of 2017, when he was President of the United States, pursuant to the cover-up, which was the basis of my guilty plea, to reimburse me, the word used by Mr. Trump's TV lawyer, for the illegal hush money I paid on his behalf. This $35,000 check was one of 11 check installments that was paid throughout the year while he was president.
The president is in Vietnam meeting with North Korea's dictator. CNN Shimakaste is there, and Hanoi joins us now. So has the president responded to all of this at all?
Anderson, surprisingly, no. If they have a war room for dealing with Michael Cohen's testimony, we haven't seen any signs of it. It's been more like a bunker, and that the president hasn't really responded to Michael Cohen's testimony. We haven't gotten any kind of response from the White House. The president's legal team, his outside legal team, has weighed in on parts of this, but not really in whole in terms of what Michael Cohen had to say in that damaging testimony, that explosive testimony that he delivered up on Capitol Hill. Anderson, it is interesting because just before Michael Cohen testified, the president put out a tweet saying that these things that Michael Cohen is in trouble for are bad things unrelated to Trump. Well, then Michael Cohen testified in front of Congress that this has to do with bad things very much related to Donald Trump. And then when reporters tried to ask the president a question about all of this before he had dinner with the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, the president did not answer those questions, and then those reporters were punished for asking those questions. Some of those reporters who were in that pool spray with the president when they tried to ask that question were blocked from the next pool spray. So the White House clearly was trying to punish those reporters for asking that question, and that all sets up the events of the day. The president is going to be meeting with Kim Jong-un shortly for their second summit here in Vietnam to follow up on what they tried to hammer out in Singapore a year ago. It's not clear at all as to what the president is going to accomplish here on the nuclear arsenal front when it comes to North Koreans, but no question about it, Anderson, he is going to be asked these questions about Michael Cohen's testimony, and my guess is he's not going to be able to clam up like he did last night.
All right, Jim, thanks. We're going to keep our eyes on the arrival of President Trump and Kim Jong-un. We'll bring that to you shortly. Back now with our team. I want to pick up on a conversation that Senator Santorum and Carl Bernstein were having before the break, questioning why people in the Trump orbit continue to lie about Russia. I mean, is there an explanation for you in this? Like just the number of lies related to Russia, Senator?
Well, I guess the point I was trying to make to Carl is the president doesn't tell the truth about a lot of things fairly consistently. And so the fact that he's not telling the truth about Russia fairly consistently, at least in the eyes of people around here, why is that any different? I mean, it's not like he's doing something out of character with the Russia investigation that he's not doing in other areas. So so you make the point, oh, he lies about Russia all the time. Well, according to what I hear on this roundtable and the network, he lies about everything all the time. So what's the difference?
Is that really the best defense you can come up with?
No, but you're talking about behavior.
Well, he lies about everything.
No, wait, stop.
What?
Because what he's saying is, and what the argument is, he's acting differently here than he is otherwise. And my point is, I'm not saying any of it's good, but the point is, He's not acting differently.
There's a real specificity to his lying about Russia. There's a specificity to him drafting,
opposed to the size of the crowds.
drafting that statement on the plan. There's a specificity to almost all of the lies that try to contradict whatever that day's breaking news is very specifically. He's on point. It's a very careful denial when it comes to Russia.
Dave,
There is a difference.
I have a somewhat different view from Carl. You and I usually agree on a lot of this. And that is, I don't think that there was any knockout blow today, which was what the anti-Trump forces helped. And in regard to Russia, in fact, it was a disappointment to the anti-Trump forces because what Cohen said, everybody thought, well, maybe Cohen can implicate him and tie him to this. And Cohen says, I have no direct knowledge. I have suspicions. Well, that doesn't really add up to very much. It doesn't really add much weight to the Russian thing. It begins to think, who does know? And where is the Mueller investigation? I think what Cohen did, it was very helpful to the Democrats, was he put a lot more fuel in their tank to do further investigations. Because the Democrats had not advanced a coherent portrait of Trump and why they ought to have multiple investigations if the Mueller thing winds down. And now I think he's painted a credible portrait of Trump as a con man.
Kirsten, do you think he did himself a favor today by saying, yeah, I don't know anything on the Russia stuff. I have suspicion, but I don't know any facts. And even on the whole elevator tape question, he said, look, I don't think Mr. Trump would do that.
I think it undermined the idea that he's just there to say whatever the Democrats want to hear, that he somehow has had this, he's decided that somehow it's going to be helpful to him to come and tell these stories about Donald Trump that they say are not true. If that was the case, well, what would the Democrats want to hear more than anything else? They would have wanted to hear something relating to collusion in Russia. So I think, to me, it seems more genuine, frankly, that he has actually had sort of a moment of awakening and realizing, looking back at his life, and there's a lot of things that he's, ashamed of, and at the same time, he's not going to make up things.
Although the flip side of that is he did say he didn't want to work at the White House, and based on numerous reporters and reporting and in the Trump kids tweeting, he did. He did.
He did want to work at the White House, and look, he would have liked to be White House chief of staff. He would have liked to work in the White House counsel's office. Trump had a conversation with him saying, I'd like you to come over, but I think Trump knew that wasn't going to occur because the children were not in favor of it, and I don't even know if Donald Trump was in favor of it. But to your point, Kirsten, I do think he balanced out the way he was so partisan at the beginning of his testimony, where he said, Trump's a con man, he's a cheat, he's a racist, and then at the end of his testimony, in his prepared comments, he also took on Trump in a personal way. I don't think that helped Cohen. I think if Cohen had just stuck to the facts and what he knew and what he didn't know, and then said, Donald Trump would never hit Melania, that was honest. That was honest. The beginning of it left me a little cold because I felt like he just had to get his digs in there. And I think for the general audience, it may have been, he's just part of the resistance, and that shouldn't be the case.
He did open up some interesting lines of questioning that might seem smaller in the context of the Russia investigation, which is so big and so all-encompassing, but issues related to the charity, issues related to his business's tax returns, the insurance fraud issue. There were all these little crumbs that were being dropped that, frankly, the questioning could have explored deeper and never did, that raise a lot of questions about the practices of Donald Trump as a businessman going back. And while that may not be the purview of Congress over the next 2 years, it is approaching that red line that the president said is a bright line for him in terms of his businesses and his tax returns. And for Congress, for the Democrats, it does give them some reason to say, well, maybe we do need to look at these tax returns. Maybe we do need to go down further on some of these roads.
I do want to play a line of questioning from Republican Congressman Justin Amash. Let's listen.
You've suggested that the president sometimes communicates his wishes indirectly. For example, you said, quote, Mr. Trump did not directly tell me to lie to Congress. That's not how he operates, end quote. Can you explain how he does this? And it's your impression that others who work for him understand the code as well. What is the truth that you know President Trump fears most?
Kirsten, because out of the 17 Republicans today, it seemed like he was the only one who actually expressed some concern about the president's actions.
Yeah, he's kind of an outlier congressman, though, to a certain extent. You know, he's somewhat libertarian-ish. He's very principled, and I think that and he's not a Trump supporter either. So he comes from a district that's kind of half and half, you know, half Democratic, half Republican. So I think, but that's an important point. Just I think to say about the other Congress people, that none of the Republicans seemed particularly interested in anything but discrediting Michael Cohen, which it kind of works both ways. If you're going to discredit Michael Cohen as being this absolute reprobate that you can't trust anything he says, well, he was the president's closest confidant and lawyer for 10 years. So what does that mean?